Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlsby with us, Sick on 365 Radio. Well, you have nothing going on in your life lately, huh?
Yeah, it's been really quiet. Just kind of got my feet up.
Which is the most of the priority? Is it NIL? Is it transfer portal? Is it the college football playoff? What is it? COVID still? The protocols? Which you just juggle them?
Yeah, they all kind of came down in the same week, so it was a bit much at that point. But the CFP stuff is. We're going to find out if we get a go, no-go decision in the next 3 or 4 months, and we've got some due diligence to do, but that one's got a little bit of a shorter horizon on it. NIL is going to be around for a long time. I mean, we talked about the world ending on July 1st. Well, it hasn't ended. There are some things that have been sort of eyebrow-raising, but for the most part, we've moved ahead, and there have been no lives lost, and we're still figuring it out. The NCAA adopted a minimal guidance stance in order to avoid litigation, and while it doesn't provide the guidance to the members that I would like to see, it is what it is. We pay the lawyers a lot of money, and we ignore them at our own jeopardy. And so, it is what it is. So I feel good about where we are with CFP. NIL, I think it'll work itself out, but it isn't going to be rapid, and there's going to be some, there's going to be some confusion in the near term. And it's a period of substantial change, more substantial than any small window I've seen in my career. But the enterprise has proven to be pretty resilient, and higher ed has proven to be pretty resilient. And if you think about the institutions in our society, higher ed is about as stable and is about as constant as anything you could name. And so I think in the end we'll figure it out, and that doesn't make it particularly comfortable right now. And the transfer portal is another good example. I mean, you look at the football situation in the transfer portal. About 40% of the kids in the portal are walk-ons looking for a scholarship, and that's understandable. The other 60%, about half of them are going to find a scholarship, and the other half are not. So, when you think about that over the long haul, one, it's too early to draw any conclusions about it. But two, intuitively, you would expect that might cool people's interests on going into the portal. Now, if you're a walk-on and you think you're good enough to get a scholarship, sure, that's a great place to go and try and find that opportunity. But you hear, well, there's 2,000 kids in the portal. Well, 1,000 of them or 800 of them are walk-ons trying to find a scholarship, and of the others, some are going to get a good outcome, some are not going to get a good outcome. So, it's. I try and not jump to too many conclusions as to how it's all going to work out.
On the CFP with the 12 teams, which I think surprised a lot of people, given that the process to get to 4 took, 100 years of college football. To do it, why the 12, and what was the impetus that maybe got that turned the tide on how people felt about expanding the playoff?
Well, there's no short answer to that. First of all, whatever number we come up with is going to be a compromise. Mm-hmm. There are going to be pros and cons, and there are with the 12. I think the thing that was attractive to me about the 12 is I think it's very good for the regular season. I think when the first poll comes out, there'll be 40 teams that have a legitimate opportunity and chance to be in the playoff. When the mid-November poll comes out, there's going to be 20 or 25 that are still in the mix. That's going to be good for regular season attendance. It's going to be good for interest. It's going to be good for TV. I think all that's good. The 8-team format, the thing that probably caused us to head towards 12 more than 8 is that when if you make the assumption that you want to broaden participation, you can broaden it with the 5 A5 champions, or you can broaden it without drawing any bright lines and say, okay, the 6 highest ranked, which most years is going to be the A5 plus one group of 5. If you go that route, you don't have any automatic qualifications. You eat what you kill. You're all on the same basis, and it results in about the same outcome. And so when you see a Cincinnati that finishes the season at number 8, or you see a UCF that finishes at number 10, you can give those people an opportunity to get in. But you also, if you do that with 6 conference champions, you only got 2 at-larges. And so is it going to be a Big Ten team? Is it going to be 2 Big Ten teams? Is it going to be somebody from the Big 12? It's going to be 2 teams from the SEC. I think you just don't have enough at-large opportunities. And most of those opportunities for the at-larges are going to come to the A5. And so, it's just, I think, people were surprised, as you said, but when you think about it, and you think about the positive impact on the regular season and the access issues that go along with it, I think it makes pretty good sense. And the fact that it's been out there now for 5 weeks or whatever, and the criticisms have been minor relative to, I think that's because. We had 150 years of experience in the room, and we thought through a lot of the issues. Is it perfect? No, it's not. It's got compromises to it, but I think it would be a great thing for the postseason. I think it'd be a great thing for the regular season.
Do you feel like this closes the gap between the haves, the Power Five, so to speak, and the have-nots, the non-Power Fives? Do you think that closes it a little bit, or do you think that kind of maintains that same distance?
Well, I think it gives them a chance to say we're good enough to play. And, you look at it over a long period of time, there hasn't been a year in quite a while where our champion wouldn't have been high enough ranked to be in. And there have been years when the highest ranked group of 5 champion was 20th. Well, that may turn out to be the team that gets in, and you'll have to pass some people that are in our league or in the SEC or the Big Ten or wherever that are higher ranked. So it won't. That was another model that we looked at, was just saying, okay, we're going to take the top 12 teams regardless of where they come from. That probably isn't the best approach. You don't want to take the top 8 teams regardless of where they come from, and if you have anybody with an automatic qualification, you're likely going to pass some people that are higher ranked but don't meet the criteria for one reason or another. So, this just seemed to be the best of all circumstances. But I think we're saying to the group of 5, eat what you kill. If you're good enough, go out and play teams and demonstrate your worth. And our committee of selection people, and that was one of the things we looked at, is the selection process a good thing? Are we doing the right thing? Well, I think what the conclusion we came to was putting 13 honest people in a room is way superior to using blended polls or computer computations or those sorts of things. And so we've given them a difficult job to do, but they go do it, and I think it's far superior to what we had before. So that same 13 people is going to look at they're not going to get to decide who the 6 highest ranked champions are. They are going to get to decide who the 6 at-larges are. And if those are if they're group of 5 schools that are good enough to play in the midst of that, so be it. If they're not good enough according to the committee, then they won't make it.
Bob Bowlsby with us, Sick on 365 Radio. It was 5 years ago Tuesday. Mack Rhoades, I think we were at the Omni for Big 12 Media Days. It was a tough time, as you know, for Baylor. It was 5 years ago Tuesday he was introduced as the athletic director at Baylor University. In his 5 years, how much has he impacted not only just the Big 12, but also what he's done to help clean up Baylor?
It's impossible to describe with any sort of precision. Mack has done an amazing job. He was chair of the athletic director subgroup that worked through a lot of the football issues this last year, so he carried a lot of water. National AD of the Year recognition of what a great job he's done there. And he and Linda Livingstone have been a great team. They had a lot to work their way through. I think they've done a spectacular job of it. Linda is our designee on the NCAA Board of Governors and Board of Directors. Mack is held in high esteem and just was elected to the Football Oversight Committee. And so, I just think you can't. There aren't enough superlatives to adequately describe what a wonderful job they've done. And as you know better than I, they're still working their way through. The infractions process is not over. The judicial process is not over. They have work to do, but the right people are deployed against it, and they've done a great job.
Why is it taking so? I know it's a lot of legal and a lot of things, but I mean it's been 5 so years. It's been 6.5, 7 months since they met back earlier this year with the NCAA. Why does it take so long, Bob?
I can't answer that question. I've been expecting a rendering from the NCAA Infractions Committee for the better part of 3 months. And this is inordinately long, and I can't tell you why that's the case. Now, in the case of the court cases, there's lots of legal wrangling and legal back and forth, and those things are protracted. I mean, we're involved in a number of lawsuits that have been going on for 4 or 5 years, so that isn't particularly unusual, but I've been disappointed that the infractions process has not been brought to close.
You mentioned earlier that the NIL legislation from the NCAA was not what you would have liked, and I think that probably sentiment is shared across the board, and they couldn't really get anything done even knowing it was coming down. Is this a bell that they need to answer, that some kind of reform needs to be made on how they make decisions? Well,
it's a reasonable question to ask if 350 Division I members can self-govern, because some of them are public, some are private, some are large, some are small, some have graduate programs, some are well-funded, some are dirt poor. So you throw all of those into the mix. It's not a very homogeneous group, and so it's a fair question to ask that. In this case, it was not about being unable to formulate the necessary package. We had 4 tranches of legislation, one that dealt with guidance on what you can do and what you can't do, another dealt with representation and how you go about getting an agent to represent you. One dealt with a third-party administrator program that would have allowed for a fair amount of transparency and the collection of normative data. And so, it's the package in this case, because it was done by a special task force, was quite comprehensive and was well accepted and would have been easy to implement and would have provided significantly more guidance. The reason it wasn't is because it got caught up in legal affairs. And so your question is based in appropriate questions about, we have frequently sought to invent a thoroughbred racehorse and ended up with a 3-legged camel that wouldn't run very fast. And so I having been involved in it for 40 years, I have to own some of that. But on this occasion, that wasn't the problem.
You were talking about Baylor just a second ago. Kansas has been in the headlines here recently. When do you, as a commissioner, and I know Baylor got so big and it was so talked about, but when you're the commissioner, how does what's maybe going on or rumors start to trickle out or stories start to come out? When does that sort of first get on your radar, and how do you go about dealing with those things?
Well, we have a little more insight into it than what you would get from the popular media. Mm-hmm. I get copies, and our compliance people get copies of correspondence and what have you. But we don't have an enforcement function. We may be involved in a penalty phase down, with something that comes down where there's a financial penalty or a postseason prohibition or something like that. But we don't have an enforcement arm and don't seek to. We advise on compliance matters. We have a couple of people that are legally trained that that advise our schools if when asked, but we wouldn't insert ourselves into an infractions process.
Do you see any way that when that timeline ends for Baylor on the withholding of money that they won't get that back?
That's up to our board, but my expectation is that they would get it back. It's going to be I haven't thought about it recently, but I think the board will probably ask me for a recommendation, and it was the package was pretty well roughed out and stipulated when it was put in place. There's a fine involved with it, and there was the retention of monies, and we even got to the point of deciding how we would use the earnings from the withheld money, which was for training on campus for sexual violence and the like. And so, I don't want to prejudge what the board will do, because it's clearly their decision. But my expectation is that Baylor would get the money back.
How much do you need a football team to win a national championship, or is that something that you have to have?
Well, aspirationally, we always want to win championships. We had 10 teams play for the championship in an NCAA sport this year, and 5 of them lost and 5 of them won. The 5 of them that lost, I thought they all should have won, and that would have been just fine. Winning a national championship in football is always what we aspire to. It's been Oklahoma recently, but in the past we've had other teams that were in the mix. Baylor and TCU both would have been in under the new 12-team model back in 2014. So, I think we've had teams that are capable of winning the national championship. I mean, Oklahoma was ahead of Georgia 31-14 at the half, I think, and ended up not winning in the Rose Bowl a few years ago. So, it's not that we aren't good enough, that we don't have good enough coaches, we don't have good enough athletes. We just haven't won, and I think we can. But Clemson and Alabama and Ohio State have won, and there's a reason, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that. And they've been better than us, and they've proven it on the field. And if we want it, we got to go take it.
Anything else, guys? I asked Mack Rhoades this on Tuesday. Did he ever have a day in the 5 years in which he regretted taking that job? And, he's had some rough moments, as you know, and sometimes blindsided by certain things. Have you ever, since taking over the Big 12, ever wished you hadn't?
This week or during the time?
Like in the last 25 minutes, I don't know.
No, I moved from Stanford largely because I thought from a commissioner's position, I could have more to say about how intercollegiate athletics was conducted. I thought there was a lot that was right about it, and I continue to believe that. But I also thought there was a lot wrong with it, and that we needed to improve upon it. And I've been able to have some of that impact. And so, I don't know that I would have wanted to do this earlier in my career, because frankly, I miss the interaction with student athletes. I miss the high highs and the low lows that go with working with coaches. I miss coming to the stadium on Saturday and saying, we got our guys, you bring yours, and let's see how we do. There's no way to really replicate that on a campus or in a conference office. And so I miss the competitive aspects of it. But I think I've had the chance to have some impact on the national agenda and the national outcomes. And so in that regard, it's been rewarding. And I will tell you, I think I work with the best group of athletic directors that I've worked with at any time in my career. And I don't have a lot of experience working with boards and presidents, but the 10 presidents and chancellors in the league are top flight, and I really enjoy working with them. And so I feel very good about it. Now, we've been wading through some deep mud, but I'm well compensated for my work, and I like the people I work with, and I may not always like the issues, but as long as I can try and make a difference, I'll be happy with it.
Before you took the job, the Big 12's biggest problem was that they kind of ate their own, or they were so much infighting, or nobody really saw the Big 12 as a big picture. It was just about, okay, what about me? And then the other conferences were kind of, even with, I'm sure, their differences, and more lockstep. You've seen it kind of grow over the years. Are you saying right now it's at that point where people can look at the conference as a whole and not be as, well, what about my university before everybody else?
Yeah, like you got unity flashing up on the sign. There's that unity thing. And then there was a thought maybe when you arrived that there were, that we all know who the Joneses are, and that maybe they were more worried about themselves than they were. What the SEC seems to be, no matter if they hate each other, all in together for the conference. Is that the way the Big 12 is now?
Yeah, I think we're very much all in for the conference, and the Joneses are always a matter of perspective, but our league in that regard are not any different from the SEC or the Big Ten or Pac-12. I mean, there are always a couple behemoths that when I was in the Big Ten, it was Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, and when I was in the Pac-12, it was USC and UCLA and Washington some of the time. But there's haves and have-nots in every league. But I think our group is aligned on strategy, aligned on the future. I think hardened by fire over the last years, and I feel very good about where we are right now.
Bob, thanks for your time.
Great to be with you.
Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlsby with us. Sikkim 365 Radio live at AT&T Stadium. Big 12 Media Days in Arlington.